Hi students, welcome to Module 3. And this week we're going to be talking about the importance of working with teams, knowing the value of doing project management, and also what do you need to know in Microsoft Word in order to collaborate with others. But first, I just want to reiterate that interpreting and translators, even though I use interchangeably, there's two different meanings for that. So it's very important, especially because the midterm is coming up. You will have your study guide to review and be prepared for that midterm, so don't stress too much about it. Everything has been covered in module 1, 2, and 3 for your midterm. So here the main difference, remember that when we're talking about translations, we're talking about the written translations and versus interpreting more with the oral interpreting. However, some students do get confused because sight translation is not necessarily a written translation, but an oral translation. So it's very important that you distinguish between the different modes of interpreting and know that translation, when we talk about translation, we are mostly talking about the written translation. So what do you need exactly to be successful wherever you are in your journey as an interpreter? So translators organization is key. So in my 25 years that I've been mostly a translator, I've worked with a couple of teams, and like everything, working in teams, you need to have certain skills to be able to collaborate, be a team player. The majority of my experiences have been very positive, but there are some that I wish I would have more maturity back in the day to be able to deal with those situations because it especially when I was assigned to work with a team to do the ICanAffordCollege.com website through the state of California. It was very challenging because there was an agency that won that contract and they hire out freelancers, and there were just multiple uh, uh, groups that were working in that project. And back in the day, I'm talking about 20 years ago, there weren't that many apps that we can go to and check for make sure that we were using the same text and there was consistency. So it was very challenging. So having the knowledge of what it entails to work in a project management is very important for you to be ready. Also, organization. Where are your files? I can count the many times that I've been looking, especially when I change computers. Now I have an external drive, which I highly recommend, and I'm going to talk right now about it in another slide. But you need to organize your files, whether you're organizing them. I have them by client name. So I have my clients, Hunko Community College, Corner Store Communications, and then I have private clients. So I do files by the client's name. So, for example, I have a client that I've been working for 15 years. So obviously, I'm gonna say Cornerstone Communications 2023, Cornerstone Communications 2024, right? To differentiate. So it's just find your own system, what's gonna work with you, but you need to be organized in how you keep your files. You worked in this week's past week in creating a glossary. So also make sure that you know if especially if you're going to be working with a particular client often and are going to be for example, when I did the first five, a couple of PowerPoints for them through my agency that I was working with, it was very repetitive and the same language came appearing for childcare services. So I always had to go and look at previous PowerPoints to make sure that I included the correct, especially from what they had already been using for years previous to me working as a translator for them through my client because I was working with a third party. So it's very important that you keep your files organized and that you are able to work in a team. And the most important thing is that you do not take it personal, especially when working with multiple teams. The client always has the last word, and even if you do not agree with the word that they selected, you just go with it. An example, I remember doing a translation for a very important police department in Orange County. I'm not going to say which one. because there was a Latino chief, and I think that was like 15 years ago, and I did a translation, and the parent of that particular police officer did not like the translation because she was from a different country in Latin America, and she did not like how I translated bachelor's degree. So anyways, because in that particular American country, it was referred to as different. So I said, fine, that's fine. That's what they want. That's what they want. But once it was changed to what they feel comfortable with, the majority of the population was not going to understand that term because they're in an area where most of the Spanish speakers are from Mexico descent. But again, the client, you always go with what the client decides. One more thing, also very important when you are working in projects, you communication skills, like I mentioned, are key. You also need to learn how to collaborate. For example, you have an assignment that you need to review the tracking feature in your Word, because the majority of the translations, written translations that I've done over the years have been in Word documents. So you need to become an expert in Word document. You need to learn how to share with others. You also learn how to track changes so that you, especially when you're working, with other proofers, and do not take it personal, because I've been with some projects that there's certain proofers that just feel compelled to make changes just because they feel that, even though, anyways, do not take it personal, because I've been in projects where some people have taken personal because the proofer changed something that they didn't agree. Do not take it personal. That's their job, and if that's what they want to do, and the client is fine, then hey, you did your part in that, and where you were in that cycle in the project. So here you can see a couple of project management tools. I really encourage you to check them out, at least because you want to know what a Gantt chart is. Google Sheets, I created here a link for you to go and see. I think in the 25 years that I worked, I probably have done projects with Gantt sheets, maybe, and then they weren't even in Google, they were in Spread, and in other projects, programs that the companies had. Probably about 5 projects in my last 25 years, because the clients, and I didn't create them, someone in the group created them and gave us assignments and timelines, and um, they wanted to make sure that everybody knew. For example, I remember during the time that I mentioned the I can afford college.com for the Department of Education, when they came out with that website for the community colleges, and this is where they were housing all the information for Calgren A and Calgren B. There was a Gantt chart that the agency that won that contract created, with all the timelines and milestone, so that everybody knew, like, okay, in January the first and second and third and fourth page of the website is going to be created, so and so is responsible. So it gives you a visual. Not a lot of companies use it, but you need to be well-rounded, and if you come up with a project that they're going to require, that oh, that's a Gantt chart. Okay, so basically it's just they assign you where you are in the project. Also very, very important is there's going to be times when clients send you documents that are not editable. So you need to communicate. That's why communication is key, and let them know. For example, the company that I work for over the last 15 to 20 years, they're my oldest client, Corner Store Communications. Actually, is the only client right now that I have because of my other teaching jobs, but I've only kept them over the years. And they usually send me PDFs that their design team creates. For example, I do their La Habra Live newspaper for them. I translate it to Spanish, and I use the Microsoft. I just turn around a Word document. I extract the text from the PDF. I don't deal with images and photo captions. Everything I mark in the Word document so that their designer can do that. And their designer can, and I'll show you in one of the slides what the product looks like. But it's very important for you to know how to edit those. So that's why one of your assignments that you're going to do has to do with a ZIP file. So back in the day, you would have to scan documents to make them editable, and that is just too time consuming. There's some programs there for you to scan, but sometimes the font doesn't work. So I highly, highly recommend that you communicate with clients if you're going to be getting something that is not editable, and ask them, because my client is not interested in me manipulating their PDF because they have a full design department. This is a very important public relations agency in Irvine. So they have their own design department because they create a lot of visuals. So I just give them the text, and they're the ones that replace all the English text for the Spanish. So for example, here you can see that there's different fonts. So sometimes it is a challenge when you are working directly on a PDF. Not all the PDF programs that you have are going to have the same font. So that's why I just get rid of that problem and just submit everything to my client in Word document, and they convert to their own font. So here for the photo caption, you can see that there's a text right here under the picture, and I always indicate in the Microsoft Word that I'm returning to my client, hey, this is the photo caption, or this is the side box or the text. So I always tell them title, this by, and body of this, so that they can know, because sometimes people in the design department not necessarily speak another language other than English. So to make it easier for them, I guide them in the Microsoft Word of where that is going to go. Now, for organizing your files, it is very important. Again, I mentioned you have to find your own, what works for you, or maybe what works for the clients that you have. In this example, everything is done based on the medical area that they're doing, cardiovascular, oncology. So it just depends on what you're doing. If you're doing legal translations, in my case, I've done mostly educational translations for the past 20 years through various clients, or maybe business, or having to do with healthcare. So again, in my case, I do everything by client name. So it just depends on what you're working on, but definitely trying to find something that works for you, and always have your backup for your files, always. So either if it's Dropbox that you use, your Google Drive, but I highly, highly recommend that you have an external drive and you do a backup of your files, because they are going to come handy, especially when you have to reference material. So for the assignment for this week, you're going to play, and don't stress too much about it. I In the past there's been some technical issues, but that's everybody should be able to learn how to do a zip file. That, especially when you are sending large files, you just want to compress your files and put them in a zip file. So that's your assignment this week. You're gonna conquer doing the zip files and follow all the instructions in that assignment. However, if you're already an expert, still do it. Try to see, think out of the box. What can I learn? What is different this time? Also, if you're working in a project management, it's very important that you track changes, because you might send it, like I have a proofer, and I send my proofers my documents, because it is always very useful to have an extra set of eyes. So I pay two people so that they could proof my documents before I send to my clients. So they do the track changes for me, and then I accept or I reject based on my discretionary point. But here I want you also to know where these features are. You could also do the suggestions and the notes in Google Docs, or in Microsoft. Again, for the majority of my clients, I have not turned in anything in Google in my 20 years. Everything has been Microsoft Word, just because my clients feel more comfortable with Microsoft Word. And then they convert either to PDF or just extract the text and put it in their PowerPoints. So we're going to talk now about freelance and how do you charge jobs? What is the quote? So the quote has been changing over the last years. I remember back in the day when I used to translate and be the interpreter of record for Rancho Santiago Community College, 20 something years ago. I was translated for Santa Ana College and Rancho Santiago Canyon College, Santiago Canyon, because I gave them a quote and I beat everybody else. I was 25 cents actually for Orange County. But let me tell you that just a few miles north in LA, the quote during that time was 15 cents to 10 cents. And then when the freelance translators started to pop up from different countries online, it even, the quote went even lower. However, in Orange County, because there was such a demand for translators, the quote back in the day was 25 cents. So I just kept it because my clients, I've had numerous clients from colleges, and I had them for many years and by just word of mouth. So I usually keep the same 25 cents per word. However, I just do that when we're just talking about a few pages. But if it is a project that is going to take me longer, I quote by project. And the way I do it is and, I take into account the time that I'm going to invest translating. For example, it takes me a week to complete the translation for La Habra Life newspaper. So you need to take into account, how difficult is this? What is the technical difficulty? For example, I did the automotive catalog for Hancock Community College in Santa Maria, and that was very difficult because I have no knowledge of motor parts and vehicle parts. So I had to do a lot of research and I had to charge them more. Also, there might be a rush job. Sometimes I charge additional because my clients need it like ASAP. So I need to, also try to figure out who else is going to work with me on a particular project. So it depends on a couple of things that you need to also take into account. Like, is this a rush job? When do I have to return it? When's the turnaround? The technical difficulty, because sometimes they might be just a very small translation, but it is still very difficult. And the case being is doing translations for billboards. It's just a few words, and they are the hardest because it cannot be a little translation. You want to make sure that you're wearing different hats, right? Besides a translator, it's like you're a marketer and a public relations because you want the slogan or you want something, a couple of lines that are in a billboard to really make an impact. So it takes time. In your module, you're going to find the guide for translators, interpreters. Please take a look at it. If you do not have the time, download it. And when you do, please review it. It is an amazing guide with lots of very complete information. This was created by someone in the UK, but a lot of agencies, and I know that Long Beach State uses it for the linguistic program. So it is a very complete guide for considering if you want to consider freelance translation, what is it that you should be looking into. This is also a graphic that I took from that guide, and that is just to show you the workflow because the workflow could really vary. In my case, I wanted to take this graphic from there so I can show you that in the last 25 years, I've been in different areas. For example, right now the agency that hires me, I've been working for them for 20 years. So I am right here. I'm a freelance, right? So the freelance I submitted back to them, but I also hired other freelancers, right? Because they're the proofers for all the work that I do. Now, in the past, the client has contracted me directly. So here's the client, and I've also been in this capacity. Okay. So the client has hired me to do, for example, a social worker. I did some contracts for her. And I also some businesses, so business owners. So they hire me directly to do freelance translation, but I've also done work with agencies. And I've also pitched, and I've been the agency at one point for a very important world, not the World Cup, but it's a smaller version of the soccer World Cup, La Copa Federaciones. So I was the agency, and we pitch, and then we hire freelancers and also another small agency in Puerto Rico to help us. So I've been in different stages of this cycle here of the workflow. So there are many opportunities. So keep your perspective very open. And Just to finalize this presentation, again, remember that it just depends on how you charge, on what you're going to be creating, the difficulties. Is this an edible document? Am I going to work with the PDF? Am I going to return to them just like it is? For example, this week you need to do a PDF and submit it just like it is. So you'll get a sense of it if you have not done that. Again, how long does it take you to do the translation? I mentioned the La Habra Life. How long does it take you? For me, it takes me over a week to do that. How many words in that document? Is it going to take me a day? Again, I mentioned the thing, the situation and the difficulty when I was working in translating some marketing material for billboards. So even though it's a small text, it took us a long time because we wanted it to be effective and it wasn't just a literal translation. So it could be you could quote by words, or you could quote by projects or by the technical difficulty. So remember to review the readings in this week's module, and you also have a discussion on job postings for interpreter translators, and you need to do some research to see what kind of knowledge, skills, and abilities known as KSAs are mentioned in those job postings and related to technology. So thank you so much, and I will see you next module.